All right, this is chapter 1, section 1, psychology. Why study psychology? Now, the main idea psychology is a science, and like other scientists, psychologists seek to explain and control behavior and mental processes, and they test their ideas through research methods. All right, so what to think about? What are behavior and mental processes different? How are behavior and mental processes different? And what are some basic goals of psychology? And how is psychology a science? So we're going to talk about psychology, behavior, cognitive activities, or mental processes, or anything that goes on in your head. Psychological constructs. This is these are used to learn more about human behavior and to talk about something we cannot see, touch, or measure directly. That's a psychological construct when we can't see something, touch it, or measure it directly. So a dream would be a psychological construct. A theory, this is something that tries to explain why something occurs, and principle is a basic rule or law. All right, behavior and mental processes. Psychology is a scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. Behavior is any action that people can observe or measure, and behavior includes activities such as walking, talking, pressing a switch, turning left or right, sleeping, eating, and drinking. Behavior also includes automatic body functions such as heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, and blood and brain activity. Behavior can be measured by simple observation or by laboratory instruments. For example, brain activity can be measured by scientific instruments such as an EEG, measures brain waves. Cognitive activities are mental processes, and these activities are dreams, perceptions, thoughts, and memories. Brain waves that indicate dreaming can be measured, but dreaming itself is a mental process. Dreams are known only to the dreamer, so no one else can see your dreams. Only you can, and only you know what they're like. But it would be kind of cool to record that. But even that you were the only ones that can see your own dreams, you tend to forget them pretty quickly unless you write them down. In addition, activity of the cells in a person's eyes can be measured as they respond to color, but only you can see your own mental image of the world. So my mental image of the world is way different than yours, and yours is different than mine. Memories, too, are private. Mental processes cannot be measured. So that's another mental process that can't be measured, that can't be seen, are your memories. Psychologists are also interested in studying people's emotions or feelings. Emotions can affect both behavior and mental processes. And for example, you might experience anxiety when you think about presenting a report in front of your class. Your heart rate might even race a bit at the thought. So, who's afraid of public speaking? I was for a quite bit of time, but after teaching for a while and getting up in front of a crowd, that all kind of left me. It's definitely a skill to have. Some people aren't afraid of it, and some people are terrified of it. Some people are more afraid of public speaking than and like getting up in front of a crowd and talking than actually dying. Your heart activity is an important example of behavior, but your thoughts about presenting the report are private and mental processes. We would be unable to observe or measure your thoughts directly. In this situation, researchers might use psychological constructs to learn more about human behavior, and these constructs are used to talk about something we cannot see, touch, or directly measure. So, what do psychologists study? Psychologists study Psychologists study the scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. So, anything that goes on in the brain. The goals of psychology: scientists seek to observe, describe, explain, predict, control the events they study. Psychologists observe and describe behavior and mental processes to better understand them. And this process enables psychologists to explain, predict, and help clients control their behavior. Now, explaining behavior, losing one's cool. and failing to perform effectively in a crucial situation such as winning an important game or taking a major test. This type of failure can hurt an individual's self-esteem or how they feel, or their self-confidence, how they feel about going into a situation. There's a lot of times where I go into situations, I don't have a lot of confidence, but then after I get through that situation, I do have a lot of confidence. So sports psychologists can help athletes like Alex Rodriguez, who is pictured, handle performance problems by applying the goals of psychology. First, they observe and describe the behavior. By measuring the athlete's heart rate, their body processes, psychologists know that the problem may occur when the athlete is highly excited. So by measuring an athlete's heart rate, they can see they can kind of see how is he feeling. So if his heart rate is a little bit higher than normal before a game, that probably means he's anxious or a little bit nervous, which is totally normal. Interviews with athletes reveal that they often feel anxious or nervous during big games. A lot's on the line. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of money involved. They may become distracted by the cheers of the crowd and lose their concentration. They cannot focus on the jobs that they are supposed to be doing. I know when I played high school football, I was really nervous before a game, and it'd be hard for me to shake that off until somebody hit me or I hit them, I tackled them, or I got tackled myself. And then all those nerves would go away, and then I'd be okay because my high school football games are pretty big. I mean, at one point I was playing in front of, I think, 5,000 people in one game. It might have been even up to even 10 because we got to the playoffs and we were going for the state championships. All right, psychologists then explain the behavior in terms of the feeling of anxiety and distractions that hinder an athlete's performance. The relationship between anxiety and the performance is somewhat complex, and a little anxiety is often a good thing. It motivates us to practice for a game or study for a test. This makes us alert and ready, so anxiety can be a good thing. On the other hand, too much anxiety is very harmful. It might make us shaky and distract us from the task at hand. So too much of it, not good. A little bit of it, it's uncomfortable, but it's going to make you prepare and do things that you might not normally do, and it might make you prepare more. So when a task does come, you'll be more prepared for it and ready to tackle it. All right, so here's a question to think about. Has anyone ever had an anxiety attack or a panic attack? These are two different things. I can't say I never had an anxiety attack, but I am starting to suffer from panic attacks. After my child was born, I started having panic attacks. I think just the amount of pressure and the fear of not being there for my daughter, I think started to really creep up in my mind. And I would create a false fear that wasn't actually there. So for instance, I'd be in the ocean surfing, and all of a sudden I'd get, my heart rate would increase and it would feel like I was having a heart attack and I thought I was dying. So I had to paddle out of the ocean because I was surfing. But I created a fear that wasn't even there. I created a reality that, I was going to pass out and black out and then drown, which has never happened to me. So I created a false fear, something that doesn't even exist. And then my body went into a fight or flight reaction. So my heart rate increased. I started sweating. I couldn't breathe. And when I got out of the ocean, I felt a little bit better. And now these attacks come more often now in my life. When I'm driving, sometimes I get it. When I'm cutting the grass, just weird times, I get intense fear for no reasons at all. Now this could be contributed to other things that I went through in my life. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I hear that exercise and breathing techniques do help combat panic attacks. As far as anxiety attacks, that's a whole different category, and that's both are very severe, and it's very hard to talk about and describe. But to anyone that has had these, you can definitely relate to me, and I can relate to you. And I didn't understand any of this stuff until I actually had one, and I said, "Well, what the heck was that?" I felt like I had a heart attack, but it wasn't. It was a panic attack. All right, predicting and controlling. Psychologists predict that athletes will do best when anxiety is moderate, so somewhere in the middle. Consequently, they help athletes change and control their behavior and mental processes by teaching them ways to keep their anxiety at a tolerable level. So there's techniques and ways to channel your anxiety. Like I said, maybe through breathing techniques, or maybe through I don't know, yoga or meditation. Psychologists also teach athletes how to filter out distraction noises and focus on the game. One method that sports psychologists recommend to help athletes perform more effectively under pressure is called positive visualization. Positive visualization. Man, that's a tongue tire. In this method, athletes imagine themselves in a critical game situation. For example, a basketball player might imagine taking a free throw shot during a close game. She sees herself raising the ball with one hand and guiding it with the other. And then she imagines releasing the ball and watching it glide through the net. I know I do this before I go surfing. I imagine the wave I'm going to catch and how I'm going to ride it, and it's going to be a good session. That's how I relate it. Or before I go skateboarding, I go to the skate park a lot, and I imagine before I go there, I imagine what trick I'm going to do and what trick I'm going to land. And if I land it, will everyone in the skate park watch and kind of cheer? You know, it's an awesome feeling when that happens, when a bunch of people are watching you do something you love, and you land a trick, or you do something, or you make a basketball shot and you got the whole crowd cheering for you. It's pretty cool if you've ever experienced that. The goal of controlling behavior and mental processes is often misunderstood. Some people mistakenly think that psychologists seek ways to make people behave as the psychologists want them to. This is not so. Psychologists know that people should be free to make their own decisions, and psychologists know much about the factors that influence human behavior, and they use knowledge to help people accomplish their goals. Now, how do psychologists help change behavior? Psychologists observe the behavior in a person, and then from what they explain to that person, what needs to be done to accomplish their goals. And this is what psychologists do. They observe a person's behavior, and from there, they try to explain to that person what they need to do to accomplish their goal. Now, if you have a school counselor, this is probably what they're doing. They're analyzing, your behavior. Now, that might not be good or bad. Behavior is just an action that we do. And then they're going to explain to you, they're taking all that information, what they're explaining and observing with you, and they're going to tell you what you need to be done to accomplish your goals so you can be successful. So if you do have a school counselor, it's probably smart that you listen to them, because I know I had a school counselor when I was in high school, and I listened to him, and it put me on the right path. And now I'm here today on the right path. All right, psychology is a science. And although psychology is a social science, it has foundations in the natural sciences. The social sciences, which include history, anthropology, economics, political science, and psychology, deal with structure of human society and the nature of interactions with the individuals who make up that society. These individuals and their behavior and mental processes are the focus of psychology. So we got a bunch of different people in this photo here. It's pretty cool to take a look at some of these people. You got a big guy drinking a milkshake down at the bottom left, and then he's an old guy. And before that, he was a working man. And maybe he was a running man before that. Well, what else do I see here? I see a pope. I see a soldier. I see a gladiator. I see a Spartan. You got Spartans up here with their helmets. I like to look at these pictures sometimes. Ooh, I see a samurai too. Okay. Moving on. The natural sciences, which include biology, chemistry, and physics, are concerned with the nature of the physical world. And some areas of psychological studies, such as the functioning of the brain, and closely related to the natural sciences, particularly biology. So psychology is a social science, so it studies humans, but it also does have a scientific area of it. So like the natural scientists, psychologists seek to answer questions by following the steps involved in the scientific research, and these steps include conducting surveys, experiments, collecting and analyzing data, and drawing conclusions. And as a science, psychology tests ideas through various research methods. Two widely methods are surveys and experimentation. I'm sure you guys have all heard of both of these. A survey is a method of collecting data, and usually involves asking questions of people in a particular group. Experimentation usually involves other human participants and animals. Unacceptable, right? Although most psychologists are interested in mainly in human behavior, some choose to focus on animal behavior such as that of the gorillas, rats, pigeons, and even sea snails. What the heck? Some psychologists believe that research findings with certain animals can be applied to human beings. The biological functioning of these animals and even their psychological responses to some situations are often similar to those of people. Others, however, argue that humans are so distant that we can only learn about them by studying people. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. For example, the studying of nerve cells of a squid, psychologists have been able to learn about the workings of the human nerve cells. So by studying squids, we've actually learned something about humans and their nerve cells. However, only by studying people can psychologists learn about uniquely human qualities and such as mortality, values, and love. You're not going to find those things in a squid. All right, psychologists rely on research to learn whether certain methods will work before they use them with clients. And of course, when the research is conducted with human beings, psychologists make every effort to protect the research of those participants. Now, back in the day, that probably wasn't the case. Psychological theories. Psychologists organize their research about behavior and mental processes into theories. A theory is a statement that attempts to explain why things are the way they are and why they happen and the way they do. Now, psychological theories discuss principles that govern behavior and mental processes. A principle is a basic truth or law, such as assumption that you will get better grades if you study more. Psychological theories may include statements about behavior such as sleeping or aggression, mental processes such as memory and mental images, things you can't see or measure, and biological processes such as the effect of chemicals in the brain. What are these chemicals doing in your brain? Some people have more or higher levels of certain chemicals than others, like men and females have different levels of serotonin and testosterone. All right, a useful psychological theory allows psychologists to predict behavior and mental processes. So, for example, if a theory about fatigue, which is extreme tiredness, which many of you might be feeling, is useful, psychologists can apply it to predict when people will or will not sleep. If a theory does not accurately predict the behavior or mental processes, psychologists consider revising or replacing the theory. Now, in psychology, as other sciences, many theories have been found to um, many theories have been found to explaining or predicting things which are concerned in the theory. And as a result, these theories have been discarded or revised. Now, let me give you an example of this. For example, many psychologists once believed that stomach contractions were the cause of hunger, so when you feel hunger. But when they observed that even many people feel hungry, even when they do not have stomach contractions, so that little pain in your stomach when you're feeling hungry. And as a result, psychologists now believe that the stomach contractions are only one of the many factors of affecting an appetite. So it's actually your stomach preparing for food to enter it. That's why you feel that feeling. If you ever went really hungry before, usually if you wait, 10 to 30 minutes, that feeling actually goes away. It's just your stomach preparing. I think it's actually, don't quote me on this, but it might actually be increasing a little bit to enter food into its system, into its pouch, if you will. I'm not trying to think of a stomach as a pouch, but I'm just trying to think of food going into the body and just sitting there. It's kind of disgusting, but it's actually your brain telling your stomach, like, "Hey, this is his feeding time. This is her feeding time." Usually at 4:30. Like your body's smart, and you can actually change your eating patterns by getting through those those periods of when you eat and when you don't eat. So, in what ways is psychology similar to other sciences? Psychologists relate to other sciences because they have to discard or revise theories. And if the theories are found to be inadequate for explaining or predicting the things in which they are concerned. Neuroimaging and cognitive research. We're almost done here. Imagine being able to peer inside a living human brain and watch it light up as it works. And neuroimaging allows scientists just to do this. Now, non-invasive techniques such as PET and MRI, if you ever got an MRI, I know I have, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. I got it done on my knee when I broke my leg. I pretty much, I was in a bad ATV accident, and my knee got pretty much destroyed. I tore 3 ligaments. I tore my meniscus in 2 places, and I broke my tibia, which is at the actual bone. And it was an ATV, so it had handlebars, and the handlebar actually went through my knee. So they had to stitch me up too. So when that all happened, after the swelling went down, they had to do an MRI scan to see what the heck was going on with my knee because it looked like as big as my face. All right, so scientists can create images that show how the brain changes as it processes and mental functioning. So you can do an MRI on a brain. I'm pretty sure they had to do a CAT scan on my brain. I don't know if that was considered to be an MRI. It might have been because I hit my head in that ATV accident too. But this is a way of seeing through the skin and what muscles or brain tissue is doing, which is kind of crazy. All right, neuroimaging has been particularly useful in cognitive research, the study of mental processes and mental disorders. And for example, REM sleep, is the stage of sleep when dreams are most vivid. So if you're having a dream and it's pretty vivid, this is most likely you're in REM sleep. This is when dreams are going to be most vivid. Neuroscientists have found that the part of the brain involved in logical reasoning becomes relatively inactive, while those parts involved in visual perception and emotions become more stimulated. So maybe this is why you see things when you're dreaming. Neuroscientists have also discovered that they can identify and chart brain activity by detecting areas of increased or decreased blood flow. As neuroscientists trace the brain's functioning, they can literally watch it at work. Psychologists hope that the pictures of the brain produced by neuroimaging will improve their ability to diagnose and even cure mental disorders. That would be awesome. By looking at the brain, we can find cures to things. Research in the field has been promising, so there's been some good turnaround with it. In one study, scientists noted differences in the brains of people with social anxiety disorder during public speaking. PET scans revealed that blood flow increases to that part of the brain that generates that fear response. And controversially, blood flow in the brain of people without the disorder increased to the area linked with thinking skills. So you can take a look at these images here. That's a vegetative state, so you're not active at all. That's someone pretty much on their deathbed, not using their brain. Might be in a coma or something. This is a minimal conscious state, so you might be half asleep or maybe sleeping. I think sleeping is so the middle image is probably when you're sleeping. It's like you're still conscious, but you're minimally conscious. You're not really fully there. And this is fully conscious. This is when you're awake. This is so you see all that red to the right. This is what it looks like when you're doing your day-to-day things, when your brain is fully active. So vegetative state is pretty much when you're almost dead. The middle one is probably when you're sleeping, and the right one is when you're fully awake. All right, in a study on depression, researchers found that participants' brains registered sharp dips and spikes in activity of their moods changed under the influence of antidepressant drugs or placebos. Placebo is like a fake drug. There's nothing in it, but if you take it, it's supposed to make you think you took the right thing. A study helps the researchers locate the spot in the brain that may regulate neutral activity during depression. Neuroimaging has also been used in the study of Alzheimer's disease. The images of the brain show the hippocampus, the part of the brain that plays a major role in short-term memory retention, and shrinks in participants with Alzheimer's. So the hippocampus actually shrinks if you have Alzheimer's, and that's why someone with Alzheimer's disease, like you see at the picture to the right, they're just losing parts of their brain or their memory. It's very sad. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. So did my grandfather. You usually get it with older age, but people that have concussions are more susceptible to it, apparently. Researchers hope that PTE and MRI scans will help scientists measure this and other changes in the brain before patients show symptoms of the disease. So hopefully they can catch it before, before this happens. So you got Alzheimer's disease all the way to the right, and in the middle, this is mild cognitive impairment. And then you got a normal brain over to the left. Now, someone in the middle might have some brain damage, or been hit in the head so many times, or might have suffered a bunch of concussions. So my brain's probably looking like the one in the middle. All right, 2 more slides here. We're almost done here. All right, while neuroimaging has provided invaluable information about the brain, some psychologists remain skeptical. They claim that neuroimaging tells us much about the brain behaves, but little or nothing about how the mind or conscious works. And although cognitive processes of the brain are related to its physical functioning, we do not really know how the two interact. In addition, many psychologists question neuroimaging research because they say that our brains are not the same. In fact, they may differ as much as people's personalities. And after all, the human brain is probably the most complex object of the scientific study. It may be interesting and useful to see which part of the brain lights up on a particular scan. However, as one psychologist said, it is not all that easy to know what that activity might really mean. All right, so here's the brain and all the different types and the parts of the brain. That's your lesson for today. Thanks for hanging in there. Peace out.